Welcome to the channel. Shocking photo of the world.
Dynasphere, a one-wheeled electric vehicle that could reach speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour, 1932. In the 1960s, one airline decided to break the stereotypes about the appearance of flight attendants and invited fashion designer Emilio Pucci to create their new look. For the flight attendants' costumes, Pucci used a space theme, and to prevent their hairstyles from getting damaged by the wind and bad weather during the transition between the airport building and the plane, he came up with a transparent plastic helmet called the Space Bubble. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tom Hanks, and Tom Cruise in Vanity Fair in 1994, when they were called the Three Kings of Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe curtsies to Queen Elizabeth II, London, October 29, 1956. When flour mills realized that women were using flour sacks to make clothes for their children, they began using colored fabrics for their sacks, 1939. Loggers holding a crosscut saw a pose next to a redwood tree they cut down themselves, California, 1917. 28-year-old Jenny Joseph poses for the Columbia Pictures logo, 1992. Hairdressers in Iran in 1977. Wearing the hijab became mandatory after the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Library found in Tibet. Over 80,000 untouchable scrolls and books. Elton John and Madonna backstage at the Brit Awards, 1995. Marlene Dietrich is detained at a Paris train station in 1933 for violating a ban on women wearing trousers. Robert De Niro with Martin Scorsese's mother. She used to cook for the cast and crew on her son's films, 1980s. Swedish activist Ellen Wagner stands in front of a stack of signatures on a petition demanding women have the right to vote. A total of 351,454 signatures were collected. Sweden, 1914. Bicycles designed for use on railroad tracks, Helston, Michigan, 1910. Ku Klux Klansmen ride through a black neighborhood with a noose to dissuade African Americans from voting in the elections. Miami, Florida, 1939. The last public execution by beheading by guillotine, France, 1939. In the 1930s, baby cages were used to ensure that children living in apartment buildings received enough fresh air and sunlight. The last living Tasmanian wolf yawns at Hobart Zoo in Australia, 1933. A soldier of the English Royal Guard fainted due to the intense heat, but no one even moved so as not to break the rules, 1957. A California alligator farm where children could ride and play with alligators, 1920s. Enzo Ferrari, an Italian auto mechanic and engineer, competes in his first race. He finishes fourth, 1919. Albert Einstein arrived in New York, where he spoke about the theory of relativity and support for Palestine, April 2, 1921. The Chicago Post Office put its workers on roller skates because they allowed them to work faster, thereby saving valuable time, 1920. For winners of the annual beauty contest, Washington, D.C., 1922. A young English inventor, Mr. Day, demonstrates his 1922 innovation, a portable radio with headphones. The device fits comfortably in a top hat, allowing the gentleman to enjoy his favorite radio programs while walking. Ms. Kate Fire & Strong attended Vanderbilt's most expensive masquerade ball wearing a taxidermist hat, 1883. South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker, circa 1997. Electric bath from 1910. At that time, doctors tried to treat rheumatism with electricity and water. The patient uses an inhaler with drugs that supposedly relieve flu symptoms. Women's medicine is essentially a tonic that relieved women from pain during menstruation. A foot-powered dental drill. The first one was invented in 1871 in the USA. Interesting historical photo. Police in the U.S. escort 6-year-old Ruby Nell Bridges Hall to school in 1960. Ruby became the first black child to attend an all-white elementary school. The child would face enormous pressure from society. Another historic photo, the arrest of suffragette Emmeline Pankhurst in 1914. There are still 6 years left before the U.S. Congress bans gender discrimination in elections. Historical photo of the first female police officer in Washington, 1918. Traffic controller. One of the amazing military historical photos, a woman in a gas mask pushing a closed pram. During World War II, German planes dropped gas bombs on Great Britain. Many citizens carried gas masks with them at all times. As one motivational poster said, "Keep calm and carry on." Photo of a historic event. Annette Kellerman promotes women's right to wear a one-piece bathing suit, 1907. She was arrested for indecent exposure. Measuring bathing suits. If they are too short, women will be thrown off the beach, 1920. Queen Min was the last queen of Korea, ruling until 1895, when the country was annexed by Japan. It was written about her. There are few people in Korea equal to Her Majesty in insight and foresight. In the art of pacifying enemies and winning the loyalty of subjects, she has no equal. At dawn in 1895, a group of armed Japanese burst into her bedroom. Seeing several women dressed identically, they began to ask which of them was the queen. Since no one confessed, the Japanese began to kill the ladies of the court indiscriminately. But Queen Min's nerves could not stand it. She broke away and ran out into the corridor. The Japanese caught up with her and stabbed her with a sword. Photo of this historical figure. Josephine Baker fights racism by adopting 12 children from different ethnic groups around the world. Here she holds her 10th child, a Venezuelan boy, circa 1959. Anna Bugeisha are female samurai belonging to the Japanese nobility and a historical photo of one of them. Samurai clans trained their daughters as warriors, teaching them fighting skills so that they would be able to defend their homes or fight alongside their husbands. The world's first photograph, 1826 or 1827. The first of the heliogravures to survive to this day is View from the Window at Louvre. It is considered the world's first photograph taken from nature. Created by the French inventor Joseph Niepce on a plate covered with a layer of bitumen. It was exposed for about 8 hours. Earlier images taken with a camera obscura have not survived. Invention of the daguerreotype, 1839. Niepce died in 1833 and did not have time to develop his success. But his work was taken up by Louis Daguerre. He developed the first commercially successful method of photography, which was called the daguerreotype. The process became simpler, and this made photography more accessible. In 1839, Louis finally made an official report on the daguerreotype at a joint meeting of the French Academy of Sciences and the Academy of Fine Arts. The world's first selfie, 1839, very soon after Louis Daguerre's invention. Another pioneer in photography improved the technology and reduced the exposure time for a daguerreotype plate to a minute. This man's name was Robert Cornelius, and it was himself who he captured for history first and foremost. His self-portrait became the first clear photograph of a human face in history. On the back of the original is the inscription, "The world's first light picture." This picture is now called the first selfie. The world's first color photograph, 1861. James Maxwell created the first color photograph using 3 black and white photographs. Each was taken through a different color filter, red, green, and blue. The image was called tartan ribbon. The world's first underwater photograph, 1893, Louis Baudin, a French biologist and inventor, took the first successful underwater photograph using specially designed equipment. In 1898, he published the first book on underwater photography, marine photography, and the progress of photography. Slides from it were shown at the 1900 World's Fair in Paris. Portrait of Pablo Picasso, 1948. This portrait of the famous Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, taken by photographer Irving Penn, captures the mystery and eccentricity of the great master. Einstein with his tongue out, 1951. This cheerful and casual portrait of Albert Einstein with his tongue out has become one of the most recognizable images of the great scientist. Mark Twain, 1907. The portrait of the great writer Mark Twain is created with attention to detail and his characteristic features. which makes it one of the most recognizable images of the writer.
A lottery used by the Selective Service to determine who would be drafted first into Vietnam. Each capsule has a day of the year on it, determining the order of draftees by birthday. Washington, D.C., 1969. 11 men dine, chat and smoke. All would be fine, but they do it sitting on a steel beam 69 stories above Manhattan. This is the scene that an unknown photographer captured in the picture, Lunch on a Skyscraper. The shot was taken on September 29, 1932, as a staged photo, but with real workers, and a few days later published in the Sunday supplement of the New York Herald Tribune. The photo was taken during the Great Depression, when desperate people were ready to do any work and climb to gigantic heights without any safety equipment. The famous photo was taken in March 1936, at the height of the Great Depression. Dorothea Lange, a reporter, captured Florence Thompson. "I saw a mother who had lost all hope, and I was drawn to her like a magnet," Lange recalled in 1960. "I took 5 pictures, getting closer each time, but I didn't even ask her name." She said she was 32 years old and that she and her children lived on frozen vegetables from the fields and the occasional bird they shot. That day, she had just sold the tires from her car to buy some food. "This is what I've been waiting for 1,400 days, admitted Soviet photographer Yevgeny Kaldyi. The war correspondent took his world-famous photo on May 2, 1945. By that time, street fighting had already ended in Berlin, and the city was completely occupied by Soviet troops. In the summer of 1945, photographer Alfred Eisenstadt took a chance photo that was destined to become iconic. He captured a sailor who had learned of the end of the war with Japan. He was running up and down the street, grabbing every woman he saw, no matter if they were old, plump or slender. Philippe Halsman is called the founder of surrealism in photography. His famous series, Leap, became a classic of photography. It included more than 200 portraits of famous people jumping in the frame. One of the heroes of the series was Salvador Dali. It took Halsman 6 hours to work on the frame, Dali Anatomicus. In 1955, Richard Avedon shot an advertisement for the new Christian Dior collection. He chose his favorite Dovima as a model and decided to capture her against the backdrop of elephants. Avedon wanted to convey the symmetry of fragility and power, light and dark. The photograph, Dovima and the Elephants, was taken at the Cirque du Hiver. On the evening of January 16, 1964, photographer Harry Benson took one of the most famous pictures of the Liverpool Four. He captured the Beatles having a pillow fight in a room at the Hotel George V in Paris. The 1969 photo was taken by Neil Armstrong himself. The first man to walk on the moon captured his Apollo 11 crewmate, astronaut Buzz Aldrin. Most of the time, Neil had the camera and I was the subject of these wonderful shots, because every picture he took was just so great, Aldrin later recalled. In 1991, Annie Leibovitz photographed a nude Demi Moore for the cover of Vanity Fair when the actress was 7 months pregnant. For the early 90s, the photo was a real shock and caused a furor. The issue of the magazine went on sale in special packaging envelopes. One selfie made it into Time's list of the best photos of all time. We are talking about a shot taken by TV host Ellen DeGeneres during the Oscar ceremony in 2014. Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Lawrence and other celebrities marked themselves in the photo. The shot was posted on Twitter, and more than 2 million people retweeted it. Artist Kobatev Yevgeny Stepanovich before and after participating in the Great Patriotic War. Only 4 years passed between the two photographs, 1941 to 45. British soldiers, interrupted by a German raid while rehearsing The Pirates of Penzance, operate a BL 6-inch Mark 7 gun at Shornmaid Fort, England, 1940. Miners rise from a mine shaft in an elevator after a day's work. Belgium, 1920s. Lockheed Martin employee Sally Wadsworth works on the fuselage of a Lockheed P-38 Lightning in California in 1944. Grand Central Station in New York, 1929. These beams can no longer be seen today, as the station is surrounded by high-rise buildings. Women visiting relatives and friends quarantined at Alevel Hospital, Oslo. Photo by Anders Beer Wills, 1905. Geologist Thomas Griffith Taylor and meteorologist Charles Wright at the entrance to an ice cave. Terra Nova Expedition, Ross Island, January 5, 1911. Photograph by Herbert Ponting. A German prisoner from World War II, liberated by the Soviet Union, is reunited with his 12-year-old daughter, who had not seen him since infancy. 1956. The last sword duel in French history between the mayor of Marseille and the Socialist Party presidential candidate, 1967. Homecoming. A British soldier with his 8-month-old daughter on a pier after returning from overseas, 1945. The oldest Austrian soldier of World War I, 79-year-old Gaspard Vollnefer, a veteran of the Habsburg campaigns in Italy in 1848 and 1866, September 1917. The last photograph of Mikhail Bulgakov. Blind, with a temperature of 42 degrees, he continued to dictate corrections to the master and Margarita to his wife, Moscow, 1939. Frank Ballou and Samuel Peterson test a new metal bulletproof shield. The shield's inventor, Elliot Wisbrod, is the man holding it. Blanche Monnier, a French woman renowned for her beauty, who wanted to marry a lawyer, but her mother disapproved of the union, so she locked her in a small, dark room in the attic for 25 years. Texas children walked to school during the Dust Bowl of 1936. Face masks were used to prevent sand pneumonia. The Dust Bowl was a series of catastrophic dust storms that occurred across the prairies of the United States and Canada between 1930 and 1936. In 1904, Louis Coulomb became famous for his 4-meter-long beard, which he mainly used to keep his cats in it. Valentine Tapley promised never to shave again if Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He died in 1910 with a 10-foot beard. Miss Universe contestants continue to pose for the press as Miss New Zealand faints in the scorching sun in Long Beach, California, 1954. Pictured are cabaret dancers from a New York restaurant who were accused of wearing indecent clothing and participating in an immoral dance, 1922. Model Angela Morrison wins 3 beauty titles for having the most beautiful eyes. Funny shot by Sunday People photographer Dennis Hutchinson, 1980s. The lady in the Paris Café thinks the same thing about Mademoiselle as the pensioners at our entrances in similar cases. Nadanlov Sanjian Genenpil, the last official queen consort of Mongolia, the wife of Bog Jijin VIII. In 1924, she held this status for less than a year. She was executed in May 1938 during the repressions. It is hard to believe that this photo is more than 150 years old. However, it is a fact. The photo belongs to the famous Russian photographer and artist Andrei Osipovich Karelin. His photographs depict mainly Russian residents of Nizhny Novgorod, and among the main characters are free peasants and the nobility of the past. The photo, which we give as an example, has artistic value, however, like many other works of the master. Nikola Tesla is a famous American engineer, physicist, inventor in the field of electrical engineering and radio engineering. His experiments related to the transmission of energy over a distance, which he conducted in Colorado, are especially well known. Moreover, such experiments were far from silent. The sounds of discharges were heard by residents several miles from the place where the laboratory was located. On August 26, 1903, Edward Llewellyn managed to catch the largest bass in history. As is known, Black Sea bass easily camouflages itself and can live up to 100 years. The fish was so gigantic that evidence of this event is still preserved. The bass weighed as much as 192 kilograms. This is an absolute record that is quite difficult to surpass. Nicholas II is the last Russian emperor, the most discussed figure in Russian history. The frame you see is the blessing of soldiers with an icon for the war with Japan. Unfortunately, prayers alone did not help Russia win, since its weapons on the outskirts of the empire were almost several times weaker than those of the enemy. But we think you already know how and why the imperial dynasty was interrupted. The profession of a barge hauler existed until the end of the 20th century, although from the middle of the 19th century, due to the advent of steam traction, the demand for barge haulers gradually began to decrease.
In 1963, in his first film role, 11-year-old Kurt Russell immediately played opposite Elvis Presley. In the film, it happened at the World's Fair. They had two short dialogues together, at the end of which he gave Elvis a good kick in the shins both times. In 1979, Kurt Russell would play Elvis Presley in a biopic. 1920, Tour de France riders share cigarettes during the race. Even in the 1950s, smoking was common among competitive cyclists. 1958, newborn Michael Jackson. 1962, British physician Dr. Michael Ash and his family eat lozenges he made containing strontium-87, which he says will be effective against radiation in a nuclear war. Actor Sean Penn, his wife singer Madonna, and former Beatle George Harrison during the filming of Shanghai Surprise, Hong Kong, 1986. June 20, 1973, actors Jackie Ankar and Richard Gere in the stage version of the musical Grease at the New London Theatre. June 26, 1973, Paris, Alain Delon and Jean Gabin on the set of the film To Men in the City. Photo by Jean-Pierre Benoit. Al Pacino during the filming of Scarface, 1983. 27 June 1973, London. Keith Richards and Anita Pallenberg outside the court. Illegal possession of drugs and firearms. Ernest Hemingway plays soccer with beer, 1959. Young model Milena Jovovich on the cover of the Italian magazine Avenirs after her parents emigrated from the USSR. 1987. Artist Andy Warhol left, talks to soccer superstar Peele about painting his portrait. In the background is a poster with a photograph of Peele. Warhol was commissioned to create a series of portraits of sports stars. New York, July 26, 1977. Charlie Chaplin and another silent comedy genius Max Linder. At that time, their fame was about the same. Chippendales nightclub, the first strip club in Los Angeles, 1979. A woman using the first and possibly last potato vending machine in Britain. Chelsea, 1962. Guy de Rothschild and Marie-Helene de Rothschild. The Rothschild Surrealist Ball, 1972. Goalkeeper Sam Bartram stands alone in goal, unaware that play had been abandoned due to fog 15 minutes earlier. 1937. A zookeeper at Warsaw Zoo takes the chimpanzees for a walk. Poland, 1939. Karl Landsteiner, New York, NY, 1930. He was an Austrian-American biologist, physician, and immunologist. In 1900, Karl identified the major blood groups, and in 1937, he identified the Rh factor, which allowed doctors to transfuse blood without endangering the patient's life. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a heavy cigar smoker during the filming of Predator and introduced actor Carl Weathers to cigars. 1986. The first DeLorean DMC-12 rolled off the assembly line at DMC's Dunmurry plant in Northern Ireland. The one from Back to the Future, 1981. Queen Elizabeth II sits in a howdah on the back of an elephant in Varanasi, then known as Benares, during her tour of India in 1961. The last photo of Charlie Chaplin, accompanied by his wife Una on a walk along the shores of Lake Leman in Vevey, Switzerland, October 1977. A soldier wearing a special gas mask that allowed him to give commands. It was equipped with a microphone, amplifier and speaker. Hungary, 1939. Penguins listening to a gramophone on a summer day during Ernest Shackleton's second expedition. 1908. Marie-Theresa de Filippis, one of the few female Grand Prix drivers, sits in the special Porsche FD built in Modena for Jean Behra. May 10, 1959. Brigitte Bardot demonstrates how to hold the second Blatnoy correctly. 1961. Photographer Daniel Cond. Harrison Ford in his carpentry shop. 1980 to one day. Star Wars director George Lucas needed to install cabinets in his house, so he hired a carpenter. Harrison Ford came to install the cabinets. The actor admits that American engineers Charles Ginsberg, Charles Anderson, and Ray Dolby demonstrated their invention. The first videotape recorder, 1956, distance learning for children during the polio outbreak in the US in the 1940s. Teachers delivered educational material over the radio. John Travolta, Maria de Medeiros, Quentin Tarantino, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson in Cannes, France, 1994. Florina Kendrick, Monica Bellucci, Michaela Bercu and Keanu Reeves in a promotional photo for the film Dracula, 1992. A helmet with a built-in communication device allowing riders to communicate with each other, 1960s. An Orzaro mud dweller wearing a traditional mask, Papua New Guinea, 1969. The Hollywood sign. The last 4 letters were removed when the sign was renovated in 1949. University of Pennsylvania dental students observe an operation at the Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery Clinic, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, circa 1910. A Hottentot boy drinks water from ostrich eggshells used as bottles, Southwest Africa, 1955. In 1940, a 19-year-old girl from Clapham, London, used a lasso to rescue cats from the rubble of bombed-out buildings. It is known that she saved about 600 animals in this way. Miss America contestants in 1945, the winner was Bess Meyerson, third from left. She is known for being the first Jewish woman born to Jewish immigrants from Russia to win the Miss America pageant, as well as the first Miss America to graduate from college. Miss America contestants in 1945, the winner was Bess Meyerson, third from left. She is known for being the first Jewish woman born to Jewish immigrants from Russia to win the Miss America pageant, as well as the first Miss America to graduate from college. Tyson holds his 2-month-old son Miguel at his dressing room, losing to Lennox Lewis by knockout in the 8th round on June 8, 2002. A small child and a giant whale shark washed up on the coast of Australia, 1965. In the photo, the largest wave recorded by humans was observed near the Japanese island of Ishigaki in 1971. The wave was 85 meters high. Fidel Castro holding a newspaper with the headline "All Police on Alert for Castro Assassination," 1959. The teardrop car Schwagen, 1936. Designer Carl Schler to develop the perfect aerodynamic car. Unfortunately, the unusual car never made it into serial production, as it was extremely unstable and was simply blown away from the road in a strong crosswind. Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell relax during the filming of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953. A doctor in protective clothing during a plague outbreak in Manchuria, China, circa 1912. Motorola's first mobile phone, the Dynatac 8000X, was a £2 model priced at $3,995 in 1984. Prince Mikhail Dolgorukov, before his execution, the sentence was carried out on December 11, 1937. His guilt was not proven. 20 years later, in 1957, he was posthumously rehabilitated. He became one of many who were shot for their title. Fashion designer Pierre Cardin poses with models in his futuristic vision of a nurse's uniform in Paris, France, 1970s. The world's first reel-to-reel tape recorder, Magnetophon, Germany, 1932. Traffic lights manufactured in Shreveport, Louisiana, from where they are shipped to cities across the United States and abroad. December 1947. Mona Grud B, 1971. Norwegian television presenter, dancer and editor, who won Miss Norway and Miss Universe in 1990. A General Motors City electric car is recharging. In the background is an Epson Dancer electric car. Photo from 1973. Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco, and her husband Rainier III, Prince of Monaco, attract curious onlookers while shopping in Lausanne, Switzerland, 1956. A photo of Al Pacino in 1961. He was arrested on charges of attempted robbery. The woman in this 106-year-old photograph is wearing a traditional dress, indicating she is married and part of Mongolian nobility. Nurses in trenches between hospital wards. France, 1918.